iron in the soul. What's up, YouTube? This is Iron and Soul, back today with another very important message. Please subscribe to my channel. Like this video, share this video, leave a comment, let me know what you think about my content. In addition to that, please feel free to follow me over on Instagram at TheKingJabez. It'll be greatly appreciated. Let's get right to work. Let's continue this series I started just a few days ago, and I want to talk about today 10 forms of mind control that men may face. I talked about my previous video, 10 battles that all men will face, and here today are 10 forms of mind control that men may face. If you guys go back to a video I did maybe several months ago, I talked about mind control and the spiritual warfare principle, or the picture of the octopus. And the tentacles of the octopus are a symbol of how the mind control demon essentially just overrides your thinking and begins to control the way you process thoughts and the way you act, because the mind is a very powerful form of spiritual warfare. It says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. We're also taught to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And we're taught that, just the mind itself is a battlefield. And I think back on my study of spiritual warfare, the scriptures and manhood and principles like that, one of the books I read probably 15 years or so ago was a book that was referred as the battle of the mind. And so that battle was something that I have faced, you have faced. And so without any more introduction, I want to get into 10 different types of mind control that you may face. Let's talk about number one, witchcraft. Witchcraft can manifest through domination, intimidation, and manipulation. People normally intimidate, manipulate, and dominate through mind games, right? And so they put these thoughts into your mind through conversations and your social interactions with these people, and they begin to alter the way you think. And this can definitely happen in a relationship when sex is involved between a man and a woman. This can happen in a business environment at work. This can happen even in a church. This can happen in a family. And so witchcraft is basically power that is not under authority. And so when you have someone trying to get power in a way that is outside of the parameters of God's structure and order, then that is a sign of witchcraft, and it is also a very clear sign of mind control. What we need is discernment, and discernment is how you overcome what Satan tries to duplicate in terms of God's wisdom and word. He tries to duplicate it with divination. Divination is the alternative to doing things God's way. And so there's a big push for that now in these last days. A lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of women are involved in witchcraft, voodoo, casting spells. I mean, you even see it on social media when you have people following you who want to cast these love spells, who want to cast all this crazy stuff. And so there's a lot of that going on these last days because people are facing battles in their mind. And rather than listen, as opposed to listening to God and gaining discernment and true wisdom and knowledge, they would much rather dive into witchcraft and to essentially tap into the power of demons versus the power of God. Number two, the occult. That's this desire to basically worship idols, submit yourself to the power of demons or gods, lowercase g. And, some signs of demonic activity really are torment. We have constant torment in your mind and thinking, and energizing sinful behavior. This is how you know you are in an occult. When you are consistently energizing demonic behavior, rituals, sexual morality, death, curses, speaking word spells. These are clear signs, okay, that you are tapped into something that is demonic as opposed to something that is angelic or something that is God honoring. And so I want to caution you guys, especially you men who, are looking to advance in life, like all of us. And so when we want to advance, and the devil knows this, he will present men to you, he will present women to you who are involved in these secret societies. And there are a lot of them. I don't have to name them out by name, that's not really that important. But all these different secret groups that meet in private, cast spells, you understand, have these secret symbolisms and handshakes, and they have this network of resources, wealth, money, power, and influence. And naturally, as a young man, you want to tap into that. right? But I want to caution you against tapping into that in a way that is basically giving access to your life to demons, not just to you, but also to your children. And this brings a curse into your life, and that curse will visit the second and third generation. So you make the decision to join an occult now may cost you the life of one of your sons or daughters. That's how serious this is. And so I want to caution you against joining the occult and being involved in all that, which can really be a very powerful form of mind control. Number 3, fantasy. Fantasy is a form of mind control. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a vision. Okay, visualization is a very powerful tool. We can sit down in quietness and think and reflect and kind of map out ideas and plans in your mind. That's a good thing to do. That takes discipline. Some people can't do that. So we're not speaking against visualization and quiet meditation, thinking, reflecting. That's wise. What we're talking about is this fantasy when you sit back and think about evil stuff, right? When you just fill your mind with dark thoughts and kind of planning out how to do something evil. That's a form of mind control. And this could be a time where you have to be careful where, demons could be talking to you. Not saying you hear actual demons, actual voices. I'm not saying that. But you hear these thoughts in your mind that are satanically and demonically inspired, right? And you're fantasizing about, revenge and sexual exploits and all this stuff that if you actually act it out, it's going to bring harm to your life. So as men, we have to be careful with fantasy and also sometimes even living in a fantasy world, right? The world is so harsh. It's a temptation sometimes to just avoid that harshness and live in fantasy. Everything's fine. Positive vibes only, and nothing wrong with being positive, nothing wrong with being optimistic. Being positive, optimistic is a good thing to do. But we don't want to be positive and optimistic to a point where we're not living in reality, right? When we can't deal with the difficult, challenges in our lives. And so we need to escape fantasy and at times have the courage, have the discipline, and have the wisdom to deal with at times the harsh realities in life. And this is not a suggestion to meditate on problems and to depress yourself, right? You don't want to do that either. Because some people do it at the other extreme and all they think about is problems and they stay depressed and down and start really battling this next form of mind control I want to talk about. Number 4 is suicidal thoughts. This is a big boy conversation. A lot of people don't want to talk about this. And obviously I suggest be careful who you share that with. We live in a world that's very unforgiving and judgmental. So if you say this to the wrong person, you might end up on medication. You might end up in a hospital where people are harming you. So be very careful who you share this type of information with. So I'm not suggesting that if you're battling suicidal thoughts, to keep to yourself because it may lead to your demise, right? So be smart, but also be wise in who you talk to this stuff about. So with that brief but strong disclaimer, I want to say that suicidal thoughts is something that a lot of men battle in secret. Right? This happened to the best of them. You read the word of God, Moses himself battled suicidal thoughts. Elijah, the prophet of God, battled suicidal thoughts. And so some of the greatest people we've ever known, great leaders, poets, men who were in authority, battled these thoughts at times in your life. Just that feeling of being overwhelmed and not really seeing a way out. And that kind of points back to that demonic agenda of torment. Demons and Satan will torment you so much in your mind, they will have you convinced that there is no way out. And once you are convinced there's no way out, suicide can be a thought that goes through your mind. And so I want to give you some wisdom with that. When you think that, understand that there is a way out, right? Think logically. You may have a problem in your life. You may have to deal with it for a year or two, right? The overwhelming thoughts come when you see a problem and you see no way out. But what wisdom says is that sometimes these problems may take time to overcome. I may battle this for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 years. But at the end of the battle, I'll be okay. So what am I saying? You have to have a long-term vision. You have to think past the immediate circumstance and think big. Where will I be and how will this matter to me 5 years from now? Will this matter in 5 years? That's big boy thoughts. Will this matter in 10 years? And can I overcome this problem? Will this be an issue? And that's something you need to think about. And that's why even guys, when you lose things, let's say you have a financial hardship and you lose a car, you lose an apartment, you lose a home. You know you can get that back in 5 to 10 years, right? Don't go blow your brains out because you lose a car or a house. Forget that stuff. Your life is more important than a freaking car or a house or a woman. If a woman leaves you, you don't kill yourself over nothing like that. Anything you lose, you can get back. So if you lose a car, guess what? With 5 to 10 years of work, you can get another car. I'm gonna talk to you in plain English. This is your big brother Iron. If you lose a house with 5 to 10 years of grinding, you can get you another house. If you lose a woman with 5 to 10 years of grinding, getting on your game and getting on your business, you can get another woman. You understand me? So don't you dare kill yourself because you're having a temporary loss. Having a loss does not make you a loser. That was just a test. That was a problem in your life. And you can overcome that with the power and grace of the Most High, the power of Yah. Okay, guys, number 5, we discussed this before in the past, and let's talk about it again briefly, and that is Leviathan. Leviathan is a picture of a sea creature in the book of Job, and Leviathan is a picture of the spirit of pride. Pride is a very powerful form of witchcraft and mind control, because what it essentially does is it deceives you into thinking you're something that you're not. And that's a very powerful form of witchcraft and mind control. This is why it refers to it in the New Testament as the snare of the devil. This is the snare or the trap that was instrumental in the downfall of Lucifer. Lucifer, of course, was the anointed cherub or an angel of God. And he was, of course, demoted to a satanic being, okay, Satan, or the adversary or devil, partially because of pride. And so pride is something that can destroy you. And so I want to caution you against pride or Leviathan by encouraging you to be a person who has humility. Humility does not make you weak. Humility positions you for blessings. Let me teach for a second. Let me teach you. Humility is what positions you to be favored by God. God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Pause. So if you want God to resist you, my boy, be prideful. If you want God to bless you and to hold you down, humble yourself. Humility is the key to riches, bread, as we say. You know what I mean? Favor, open doors, opportunity, network, even with people, not even with God, even with people who are in position of power. People like a humble, capable person. I'm not saying be humble and you don't know nothing. That's just you're not qualified. Okay, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being honest. If you're not qualified, people are not impressed. But if you are truly qualified and able to do something and you have a level of humility about yourself, people like that. And people are willing to work with an individual like that. And so having a humble spirit doesn't mean that you're weak or timid. It means you are a good person. You're capable. You're able to articulate yourself pretty well. You carry yourself well. You're able to get the thing done, whatever that may be. And yet you have this aura about yourself that says you're not a jerk. Bottom line, I'm talking to you in plain English. I'm trying to find a proper word to use. I'm going to use it just plain English. You're not a butthole. Okay? I'm going to talk to you with men talking. No one wants to deal with a butthole. No one wants to deal with a jerk. No one wants to deal with a cocky guy you can't tell anything. Okay? So when you can avoid all that, because a lot of guys are like that, when you can avoid that and have a level of humility about yourself, you automatically distinguish yourself from a large percentage of guys. And this can position you to be favored financially, as well as with people, as well as with women as well. Number 6, hatred. This can really develop into a form of mind control. You think about even racial hatred. A lot of that is based on indoctrination, being brainwashed mostly by older people from a race. Most people who are racist were taught this by the previous generation. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you have been programmed by your own race, more than likely, in the media and news and other forms of information to view certain people a certain way. And we're not talking about just blacks and whites in America. Racism, of course, is a bigger problem than just America. We're talking about the whole world for that matter. Right? This is nothing new. This idea that you're better than someone else. Having this hatred for someone, whether it be, men who hate women. That could be a form of mind control. Women who hate men. When your mind is so messed up based on bad experiences or either information or indoctrination or both, that you have a hatred for a specific group of people or for the opposite sex or even the same sex. Because there are men who hate men, right? There are men who do not like other men. And there are women who do not like other women. So hatred can go, so many different ways. whether it be the same sex, opposite sex, race, class rather, status, what I mean, ethnicity, what country you're from. I mean, that can be, it's so diverse, right? And a conversation on hatred can be 2 hours long. We're not doing that right now. We're just briefly giving a few thoughts on this topic to add some more details to this teaching. And so hatred can most certainly be a form of mind control. And of course, the obvious solution to that is to show the exact opposite, right? Love, patience, being kind, being generous, giving, helping people out, giving information, showing kindness, support. So we overcome hatred by manifesting love. Number 7 is similar to number 6, but it's a little bit different. And this one is unforgiveness. Yes, unforgiveness is to a degree a form of mind control. When you just refuse to let something go in your mind, right? If something happened, it could be, something happened yesterday, it could happen a year ago, 5 years ago, what I mean? Whether it be involved in relationships or family or business. This normally happens very close proximity, such as a family or work or co-worker relationship. Someone who you trusted at some point. They burned you, they crossed you. And, you just cannot let that go. And you get angrier day by day. And this can begin to have a negative impact on your health. I told you guys about a book I read back in 2002, 2003, somewhere around the time. I read a book around 2002, 2003 that was referred to as Deadly Emotions. It was by a medical doctor. And he was teaching in this book that some diseases were brought upon people based on their toxic emotions of bitterness, unforgiveness, hatred, cruelty. When you hold on to that stuff, that will eventually have a negative impact on your physical body. Why is it? Because we are created as one, spirit, soul, and body. That's the way the Most High God created us. So what happens to the spirit will have an impact on the body, and how we treat the body will have an impact on the spirit and the soul. It's all connected. And so when you refuse to forgive, you are hurting yourself, whether you know it or not, physically, most certainly spiritually, and I would say on a soulless realm as well, referring to your mind or innermost being. Of course, the solution to that is not an easy one, but it's something we can do. It's something called forgiveness. And I know a lot of times we don't want to hear that, but when we make a decision to let things go, you get healed. And forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Let me put that out there too. Let me make sure I put that into this conversation. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you're going to ever have a relationship. There are some people who are toxic that you should forgive and never deal with them. It's that simple. So I'm not suggesting keeping, toxic, narcissistic people in your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to tolerate people who are Jezebels or Ahab, narcissistic, sociopaths, psychopaths. I'm not a psychologist, but I read those terms. So you don't have to tolerate these people, but you can forgive these people and create some space to protect yourself and your energy. Number 8, guys, and here's one that a lot of men struggle with. Perfectionism. You just got to have everything perfect. And that is driving you crazy. And you put that standard on your woman, you put that standard on your children, and you are driving everyone around you nuts. Because you have, granted, guys, listen, nothing wrong with having high standards. I suggest you have high standards, that you set the bar high for yourself and shoot for the stars. Try to be the best you can be. I'm all for that. Being your best version of yourself, self-improvement, all of that. However, you don't want to get to the extreme of perfectionism when you just end up just offending people. You know what I mean? Because you're the type of person that nothing's ever good enough for you. And I can tell by, some of the comments I read. I read the comments, of course. And it's not an insult. This is just observation. Some of you guys clearly struggle with that perfectionism mind control. Because I can tell there's some people it's just nothing good enough for you. I don't care what anybody does. It's never enough. And that has you in a place of torment, and you torment those who are around you. Which leads me to number 9, which is very similar to number 8, and that is self-rejection or self-hatred. That perfectionism can lead to a very strong spirit of self-hatred, right? When you begin to hate yourself, the way you look, the way you talk, the way you sound. And, self-hatred is something I've observed firsthand as African American within our race, there are a number of people who hate being black, and they manifest that in their mannerisms, the way they talk, their opinion and treatment of other people of color. And it could be a woman who's self-hating. She hates her body or her image, the way she looks. She hates her shape. A lot of women struggle with body image based on, what they see on social media. You got this woman, everybody on social media has a perfect body, right? And so regular women see that and they begin to hate themselves, think they're ugly, they're unattractive, blah, 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 right? And so this happens to both men and women, where you're basically comparing yourself to other people. And for women, it can be body, image, and looks and beauty. And for guys, it can be wealth and status. So you see this guy online, he has a Mercedes-Benz, nice suits, money, women all around him. And if you're not careful, you start thinking, okay, I'm a loser. Something's wrong with me. I don't have all those things. And so we have to be careful with this mind control of self-hatred and begin to show self-love and self-care and begin to respect ourselves. And when we begin to respect ourselves and have an appreciation of our individuality and our gifts and abilities and who we are as a human, as a person, that self-respect will begin to dictate how other people treat you. Because when people see you respect yourself, it becomes harder to disrespect you, right? When you stand up for yourself and have this level of dignity, that kind of sets the tone to how people should treat you. And so I encourage you to overcome self-hatred with self-respect. And number 10, last but not least, legalism. Legalism is something that affects a lot of religious people. When you live your whole life based on a list of do's and don'ts, and sometimes an inaccurate interpretation of scripture, that leads to really just this impossible standard for yourself. And this is when you base your walk with Yah or God, Yeshua, on rules versus relationship. And so our goal is to have a relationship with God. Our goal is not to based upon rules and laws. And this can lead to consistent frustration, never feeling good enough, always feeling condemned and guilty. Understand this: there is a difference between conviction and condemnation. Legalism and condemnation comes from Satan. Conviction and love comes from God. And so when you consistently operate from a place of condemnation, then it's most likely satanically and demonically inspired. But when you transition to a place of conviction, or you've been convinced by God to live a certain way, and that standard is based upon love versus guilt and necessity, then you have transitioned into a walk with God versus the spirit of legalism. So men, that was just a solid video for you guys, kind of a part 2 to what I talked about just a few days ago in terms of 10 forms of mind control with some brief solutions. I trust this will add value to your life. This is your brother Iron and Soul. God bless. Peace.